I would sit in the bookstore and read magazines and books about hunting instead of spending the money to buy them because, I didn't have a lot of money. The one thing you don't want to do is overwhelm yourself and put yourself in a bad position or an awkward position that makes you not want to go back out into the woods. I put in sometimes 50 hours of work before I show up to a hunt. I keep a whole file of photos on my iPhone of poop that I find in the woods because I think it's really cool to show people that. I started making these short videos, kind of reviewing pieces of gear, recommending things to add to your lineup. I woke up to dozens of text messages from people calling me the Squirrel Whisperer. And I was like, oh, good. Thanks. I think it's a really cool thing when you can say, yeah, no, we didn't fill our tags, but it was the best hunt. Hi, this is Jules McQueen, and you're listening to Living Country in the City, episode number 37.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey, y'all, welcome to episode 37 of Living Country in the City. As many of y'all have seen from my posts, I'm finally back from my elk trip in Idaho, and suffice to say, it was not the experience I'd really hoped or planned for. But many lessons were learned, and it turned out to be quite a story. So keep an eye out for the next podcast, where I'll be doing a recap of the trip, along with a discussion about many of the issues that came up along the way. Now, even better, make sure you don't miss out on any new episodes by searching for Living Country in the City on your favorite podcast platform and subscribing. Also, if you've been enjoying the podcast, take a moment to please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher. It really helps the podcast out. Now, today I'm talking with outdoor writer and television host, conservationist, and avid self-taught hunter, Jules McQueen. Jules, thanks for hopping on the show with me today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, you come from a bit of a unique background when it comes to hunting and the outdoors. I always like to have everyone give a little bit of introduction about how they got into it. But like I said, yours is a little bit different than necessarily some of the folks that were raised in hunting families and things like that. Is that correct? That's
true. Yeah. And, I love hearing other people's stories about, their dads taking them hunting or, even if it's a grandpa or an uncle, people introducing them to the outdoors in some way. I grew up I actually grew up in Oklahoma, and I was the youngest in the family, and I had 3 older brothers. And we did things outdoors, but we were not a hunting family. We, did a little bit of fishing and some camping, but that was about the extent of it. And I'm from a military family, so there were a lot of firearms and things like that around all the time. So I had a kind of very vague introduction to part of the outdoors world, but it wasn't the type where I had someone to really introduce me to it. And it's kind of funny. I just kind of felt this urge to know more about hunting and where our meat comes from. And, I would see pictures of people wearing camouflage, and I was curious. So around the time I was, 17, 18-ish, somewhere around there, I started going to the bookstore, and I would sit in the bookstore and read magazines and books about hunting instead of spending the money to buy them because, I didn't have a lot of money. So I would, I'll just sit here at this table and drink coffee and read all day. So I couldn't have even told you what animal species lived in what part of the country. I had no idea that there were different types of deer or that bears were only in certain states. I didn't understand where animals were in our country because it wasn't something that was ever really talked about when I was growing up. So, it's funny when you think about hunting and there's some knowledge that you just think is inherent. Like, oh, you should know that there's mule deer or whitetail or blacktail or, these different things. But people who aren't introduced to that and educated on it, it's a whole new world. So that was my situation. I self-educated. I read everything I could get my hands on and just kind of threw myself into it thinking, this feels good. It feels like something I really want to do. I went to an Army surplus store and I got some old used camouflage that was awesome. It was like way too big for me, but I felt really cool when I wore it. I borrowed a gun. I got permission on some property, and I just took myself hunting. And, it was kind of that learning through your mistakes. And I think that story is why I'm so supportive of people who take their kids out and really educate them from a young age, because I didn't have that. So I love seeing that other kids do have that given to them.
Well, that's one thing. When I found that out, I felt super related, because that's kind of, to some extent, I didn't necessarily grow up in a military family. I grew up in Southern California, but we were always just in the outdoors and fishing, and we'd go out to the Sequoia National Forest and rent a cabin every year, and I'd go camping, but there was never any real hunting, and I got into firearms, and same kind of process where I didn't really have anyone to teach me or tell me what to do, so I kind of just looked stuff up on the internet and went and read books. Right. And got interested in picking up a bow. And I mean, short of shooting a little recurve as a kid, I'd never touched a bow prior to this, and like a compound bow, definitely not. And so I was kind of like, well, okay, that's how you do it. And I mean, I kind of, I was like, okay, I guess this kind of makes sense. It feels right, and I'm hitting a target, so I can't be doing it all that wrong. And well, little did I know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how we look back at those beginning days, and we were having a lot of fun. Of course, we weren't doing everything right, but it's those beginning stages are so fun, because it's you already know you're passionate about this whole thing, but you don't know anything about it yet. So it's almost like, and the best way I've found to put it into words is it's like almost like a subconscious or an inherent trait that's been passed down from generations of hunters in the past, where you just feel at home being out in the wild, chasing animals, because that's what our ancestors did. It's almost like, as a human, some of us just have that inside of us somewhere. So like you, just kind of having that feeling of knowing that that's what you wanted to start doing. I think there's some type of connection there in some way with our ancestors.
It's definitely tapping into that kind of primal nature, that whole cultural history we have as human beings. We're all here one way or the other, because an ancestor at some point had to hunt an animal and to live.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's funny. I wrote an article last year for the Mueller Foundation, and it was kind of talking about empowering more women to get into the outdoors and to appreciate our hunting heritage. And what I based that article on was the fact that there were female hunters in some of our history. I mean, I'm going way back on this. And I like to think about, these women in ancient times sitting up on a ridge, watching the animals and providing for their families in that way. And, it kind of makes you feel more connected with humans in general. But it also makes you want to empower more generations to follow in our footsteps. We don't want to lose that. So I don't know. I just get such a kick out of seeing young kids who are already passionate about it, and then knowing that as they grow up, it's going to get deeper and deeper, their affection for the outdoors. So it's been cool for me over the years in this industry to watch how, more people are embracing that and introducing, the next generations.
No, absolutely. And I feel like folks like us who don't come from that hunting background, when they're passing that along to, the generations coming after them, whether that's their kids or their, friends' kids or their nephews, nieces, whatever that may be, it's going to be I feel like they're even more excited to pass it along. Like you were saying, you get super excited when you see youth getting into it. And I think that's like you said, because you didn't get that, and you kind of sometimes think about like, oh, what what would it be like if I had, where would I be now and all of that.
Yeah, I've been in this industry for, I don't want to age myself, but quite a while. And my parents are now hunters. So there's kind of this cool twist of events where now my parents actually enjoy going out. My mom does a little bit of rabbit hunting, and, I think she went deer hunting last year. And my dad, he goes deer hunting also. So, it's something I didn't grow up with. Now I have that to connect with my parents with. So I just think it's cool that it kind of all came full circle.
That's really exciting. And I notice it's funny. I notice the same thing with my folks is they've always been pro hunting. It was never our family's thing. But now I see, I talk to them about it, and they're super excited. And of course, they know the size of my freezer down here, so they know exactly where some of the meat is going to be stored if I get anything. And so they're rather excited about that as well.
Yeah.
But so looking at where you're at now, kind of compared to where you were in those first few hunts or those first couple of years, what would you say are some of the biggest differences or some of the biggest lessons you've learned when you look back, or maybe I'm sure there's probably some things you had to unlearn as you started making more connections in the outdoor industry and learning from people.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I think that learning from our mistakes is the best way. Well, I'll take it right back to that first hunt. I shot this deer, it was the first time I'd ever seen an animal die, and my first animal, it was the first time I had ever really shot anything. So I shot this really nice buck, and he was old and big and beautiful, and it was just crazy luck that he was the one that walked by. But one thing that's changed is back then, you didn't have social media. I couldn't just Google it. I think I had a cell phone, but it was one of those really, really old, big phones, I didn't know how to clean an animal. I think back and I'm like, nobody wrote about this in those books I was reading. They didn't tell me step by step what to do. So I called a friend and I'm like, I have no idea. I think I can get this thing in my truck. I didn't know how much they weighed. You think about those details, like somebody should have probably told me that, a 17-year-old girl can't lift up a huge whitetail buck by herself. So I think back on that day and me trying to clean this animal and not knowing you don't put the knife in that deep, so I made a total mess. And I think one thing that I appreciate about that is the innocence in it. All I knew was that I wanted to learn and I wanted to get really good at this. And I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty and to put myself out there and really, try to just jump in head first with it, because I felt that passionate about the entire process, even from the beginning. Back then, there weren't a lot of women or, young ladies doing these types of things, especially publicly. So for me, I would make mistakes like that, but I wasn't embarrassed about it. I would call people and say, okay, so made a total disaster out of this. What did I do wrong? And, then I would learn from those mistakes. And now I take a lot of pride in the fact that I clean my own animals. I cape them out. I process my own animals too. Last year I processed, I think, 4 different deer in my kitchen. I haven't changed much in that way. I still enjoy the entire process. But I have changed in the fact that I do more research now before I jump into something. Like a good example is if I'm going to a different state to go hunting, which I do, every year I hunt, I don't know how many states, a lot. I read every regulation. I research the area. I do my homework. I put in sometimes 50 hours of work before I show up to a hunt. So, that has changed a lot. I used to be very relaxed about, I'll just show up, and as long as I have my tag, I'm good. And now I'm very prepared, and I'm very forward thinking because, I've turned it into a platform that I try to use to inspire more people and to empower more women. And so I feel like it's my responsibility to know what I'm doing ahead of time. So that's definitely changed for me. I'm much more, prepared instead of just jumping into things and, learning from mistakes so freely.
Well, I think one of the biggest struggles when you're kind of teaching yourself is often not knowing which questions to ask as well. It's like, I've never had a problem asking somebody, it'd be like, I have no idea how to gut a deer. You want to give me the rundown?
Yeah.
But so often, you just may not think of that right away. It's your first hunt. You're focused so much on like, okay, awesome. I got to get ready for this, and I got to figure out, how to stock up on the deer or whatever, whatever it may be. You're focusing on those. It just may not occur to you to ask that question beforehand,
Right.
Like, oh, crud. Until you're in that moment and you realize that, you don't always know which questions to ask. And I think that's being self-taught and things. I think that is one of the biggest struggles is, what may be obvious to some people, you just, like I said, don't even know to bring up as a topic.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, some people slam social media or say, it's just people showing off. I find so much value in the fact that we can show those details to people who might not have thought about it. So the ones who don't know that they should be asking the questions, those are the ones we're trying to reach through our platforms. So if I put like a YouTube video out there or, whatever it is, I try to include little, bits of brilliance in there, little gems that people might find and say, oh, I never thought of that. I had no idea I should ask that question. So I think that it's, those of us who've been around long enough to learn those lessons, I think it's our responsibility to make sure that other people see that information so that we can all grow together. There's been a lot of times in the past where I didn't know to ask a question, and then you're kind of just left standing there going, well, dang it. I had no idea that this was even a possibility. So, I do totally get that. And I just hope that, in some small way, people like us can help the next generation not get into that situation where they didn't know they should have asked a question.
Definitely. And I'm sure I will be in several of those moments come this time next week as I'm walking out into the backcountry in Idaho going, oh man, there's
right? Yeah. It's
hopefully
so true.
Walking into a load of bugles, but we'll see about that when I get there.
Yes. And, that's a good example. Like, I went from, just kind of whitetail hunting, turkey hunting, and then I started doing some Western hunts. And, quite a few years ago, I can remember, hearing my first elk bugle and, seeing poop on the ground. I didn't know what kind of poop it was, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so many new things to learn. I don't even know. I keep a whole file of photos on my iPhone of poop that I find in the woods because I think it's really cool to show people that and to educate people who don't know how to identify things. So, it's like all of it opens this whole new world when you go on these new adventures. And, we're so lucky to have technology where we can Google stuff real quick or look it up or, find a way to figure things out. But I think that going on those adventures and kind of throwing yourself out there, like what you're about to do in Idaho, that's the best way to learn.
Oh, definitely. And albeit I am still waiting for someone to release the app the hunting app where you just photograph the poop and it automatically identifies the animal for you. That
is genius. Or you could do like me. I text it to all of my friends. I'm like,
it's the
hey,
same thing.
What's this? Yeah. Yeah, and it's usually my hand sitting right next to it, so for size reference, And so during hunting season, And now that I have your cell phone number, you're going to be getting a lot of poop pictures because I like to get people's opinions.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you don't know, at least you got someone who could be close to a computer that can Google it, if nothing else, you know? There's many different resources.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, and one more quick little note on that. When we're little kids, you know, my mom was always like, don't step in the poop. Oh my gosh, stay away from it. And now I see poop, I walk up and put my foot in it, you know, because you got to see how fresh it is. And,
you got to kick it around a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I just think that's so funny that as hunters, we're so, you know, intrigued by what animal was here and when were they here. And we really want to know those things. And, you know, so sometimes I send my mom a picture of me, you know, kicking some poop and I'm like, ha, you told me not to do that, but whatever.
When I want to say it was when I was in junior high, there's this, it's kind of like a nature park, like natural preserve area, not too far from where I grew up. And we went out and they had like a visitor center in there where you could buy souvenirs. And I remember one of the things they had was this shirt and it had all different kinds of poop on it. So it had like picture of coyote poop, had a picture of deer poop and of squirrel poop, and it was just this huge grid on the front, and I would give anything to have that shirt again.
Oh my gosh,
it's gotta
be awesome.
I either gave it to one of my nephews or it's sitting in a box somewhere in like my parents' storage in their warehouse. It's probably been chewed on by mice at this point, but I have to find that shirt again somewhere.
That is awesome. Yeah. If you find it and if you ever see another one, you better let me know because I want that shirt.
I will definitely keep an eye out for it next time I'm down.
Awesome.
I'm sure they probably still sell the same dang shirt at that visitor center, but I'll have to go look.
Well, even though I was supposed to be working this afternoon, I know what I'm going to be doing online. I'm going to be looking everywhere for
poop shirts. Oh, goodness. Well, moving on from poop. Kind of. So you just recently got back from ladies hunt, is that right? With your Matthews Archery ladies?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I am so lucky because I have the best girlfriends in this industry, and I have managed to surround myself with awesome people, which is the key to success. We all know that. So Matthews Archery set up a little ladies archery hunt in Utah, early season, and it was so refreshing and so nice because we don't do that very often. Sometimes us girls get together, you know, and just kind of have a weekend or whatever, but we've never really all hunted together. And when I say us girls, I'm talking Christy Titus, who we all know and love, Jana Waller, she's the best person in the whole world. I think everyone knows Jana Waller. Melissa Bachman, who's maybe the coolest person I've ever met, and Corinne from Matthews. So we all met up in Utah. Jana and I got there a couple days before everybody else and just hung out for a while in this beautiful lodge. And we had a great family that was hosting us there and kind of showing us around. And, you know, it was just one of those refreshing, nice situations where we're going into hunting season. Everyone's about to get crazy, you know, busy with our schedules. And all of us girls just got to kind of go and hunt and relax and talk and catch up. And I just got home from that 2 days ago, I believe, and it was awesome. And the best part about this is nobody really tagged out. Like, I mean, we all just kind of had a relaxing hunt. It was really hot out. The moon phase was bad. I can list a ton of reasons why none of us really shot anything. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a really cool thing when you can say, yeah, no, we didn't fill our tags, but it was the best hunt. You know, it was the whole experience and the entire process of it that made it amazing. So, yeah, I'm really blessed and lucky to be a part of the Matthews family and to have girlfriends like that I can, you know, spend time with and, you know, kind of just bond over the outdoors.
Absolutely. And I was kind of following along on yours and Christy's Instagrams and the stories, and it looked like you guys were just having a hell of a time. Like, it looked like you were having so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. If you watch Christy Titus's Instagram stories, that's probably the best entertainment you can find around, because we had a really good time. At one point, a squirrel got loose in the house, and it ended up in Jana's bathroom. Did you see that?
I was crying. I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe watching you guys, all of you try and deal with that squirrel. and then trying to pull it out so you could show it.
Oh my God, I know. Well, you have to see the squirrel's face. It was adorable. So at one point, Jana was sitting on the floor laughing because she couldn't stand up, and Titus was filming it for her Instagram story. But I volunteered to catch the thing because it was hiding behind Jana's toilet, and someone has to get it out of there. So I grabbed one of Jim's shirts and caught it, and it never crossed my mind that it could be dangerous, because I guess that, people have been bit by him in the past and had to go get rabies shots and stuff, but I felt fine, so I caught it, and we had a good laugh, and then I let it outside, out on the balcony. So yeah, but I had the next day, I woke up to dozens of text messages from people calling me the Squirrel Whisperer, and I was like, oh, good. Thanks. That's great, Titus. But yeah, we had a really, really good time.
Yeah, it definitely shows. And I think, sometimes you ladies got to get together with the group.
Right.
I definitely see a lot of that from some of the ladies that I've talked to on the show. I've gotten to have Christy on. She was one of the very first people I got to interview when I was starting out. I think she was a little bit bored at the at the show out in Utah. She's like, oh, thank heaven, something to do.
Right. Yes. And isn't she fun to talk to?
My gosh, we had a great time.
What a crazy girl.
Discussing throwing snakes at vegans, and
oh my God,
there was a bit of a miscommunication. She misheard something I said, and we went through the next 5 minutes of the podcast discussing two completely different topics, but at the exact same time.
No.
I said something about throwing a steak at a vegan.
Oh my God.
Or something like that, and she thought I said throwing snakes, and we both diverged on two completely different paths, and it just kind of proceeded to get more and more confusing until we realized kind of, okay, we're back. Let's get back on track here.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh.
So speaking of the ladies, you also did some a collaboration with Women's Outdoor News and Sitka recently, right?
I did, yes. So I've been wearing Sitka gear for a few years, and I spend a lot of days in the field every year. So obviously I'm very thankful that I have a partner that makes gear that keeps me warm and comfortable in the field. So, and I also work with Women's Outdoor News because it's really the best place to go for news in the outdoors world, especially for women. Although men also visit that website because there's some cool stuff on there. So my friend Barbara at Women's Outdoor News set up this collaboration with Sitka Gear, and it's so cool. I started making these short videos kind of reviewing pieces of gear, recommending things to add to your lineup, for the fall season. And it's nice because it kind of answered a lot of questions for people. I get a lot of direct messages, private messages, text emails from women who are really genuinely wanting to know what type of clothing or gear they should have for a very specific hunt, or what size I wear in a specific piece. So it kind of put a lot of information out there for, women who are wanting to invest in some stuff for their fall season. And I'm just excited to be a part of it. I I am so thankful for, things like that come along that allow me to kind of, you know, bridge that gap between the people I work with, Women's Outdoor News, Sitka, and I also did a thing through Women's Outdoor News. I think it was a couple months ago that I thought was really neat. So the NSSF does a thing called Project Child Safe, and it's to kind of help protect children from firearms. We hear a lot of stories about kids finding a gun and, it doesn't have a gun lock, or they don't know it's loaded, and then accidents happen. So I was really thankful that Women's Outdoor News brought me into that project with the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And so I did a little video for them on that to encourage people to use gun locks and, safely store their firearms. So a lot of cool little projects like that going on. And those things excite me because it's things that I'm passionate about.
Now, with that Project Child Safe, do I remember correctly, you're also involved with Covert Cabinets, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's such a cool little crossover there because so Covert Cabinets is a company that reached out to me. I think it's been maybe even a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, with this product that they make. And it's a cabinet. When I say cabinet, it looks like a shelf that you would hang on your wall that you would like sit a vase on, or, in my case, I sit my alligator head on it. It's just this cool shelf that sits on the wall, and it looks like just a shelf, a wooden shelf. But it has a little key. It's a magnetic key that you put on the top of it, and you'll hear it click. And on hydraulics, the shelf opens from the bottom, and you can store guns in there, paperwork, jewelry, anything you don't want people to have access to. So, like in my house, I have one that has guns in it, and it's actually the guns that I use as my concealed weapon every day when I leave the house. So as I'm walking out, I walk by this shelf, I click the unlock thing real quick, hydraulics, it comes down, I grab my .380 and I stick it in my purse and I walk out the door. And that way, when they're in there unlocked, people can come in and they can look at all the stuff in my house and walk around. And I know my gun is right there, but it's not in reach, technically. They can't get to it if they don't know how to open that shelf. Mm-hmm. So I just think, things like that, it's just a responsible way to be as a gun owner. And I think that people are starting to realize that there are ways to keep your guns in places where you have easy access really quickly, but they don't have to be sitting out on a table. There's too many accidents that happen. I read about it in the news every day, and it's just tragic that, it can be prevented. And I'm trying to help get that message out there. I'm really trying to help. Even though I don't have children of my own, there are kids in my house all the time. And, I'm very open about the fact that, I just won't stand for it, to have any chance of them finding something that they shouldn't. So, yeah, just kind of a cool project. I'm actually doing another project for Covert Cabinets right now, just kind of doing some of the videos and stuff for their other products that they offer. So, yeah.
No, that's really cool. It's just me in the apartment and stuff, but I still always make sure to keep my firearms locked up. I mean, if nothing else, just because I don't want people, I live in the middle of LA. We get people breaking in. Someone broke into my neighbor's apartment fairly recently. My next door neighbor, I don't think they messed with my apartment because I have the sign in the window that says nothing inside's worth dying for, and it's filled with bullet holes. But right. If somebody does come in and they're just kind of looking around, looking to grab a computer or monitor or something, I want to make sure my guns are locked up. But I also want them accessible. Like I said, if I'm inside and somebody's trying to kick down my door, I want to be able to scare them off if I need to. And, I don't want to have to go into a big old combo safe and all of this stuff. So I always have enjoyed products like that. And it's, it doesn't need to be big and obtrusive and ugly. You don't need an 800-pound safe that no one can move if nobody even knows it's a safe.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. I have gun safes and I have, little lock boxes and stuff like that. But the guns that I access most often are hidden in plain sight. And, to me, it's not like the good old days where we would just put them down on the couch cushions or, find a little hiding spot. Oh, no one will ever find it there. I think we need to be a little more safe about it, and just make sure they're locked up and even gun locks, if it's a gun you're not going to use, for quite a while. And that's another cool thing. The NSSF through Project Child Safe, they have donated, I could get this number wrong, but I think it's something like 800,000 gun locks to local, sheriffs to hand out to communities, just for those cases where people have guns laying around and they're not secure and they need to be. And so there's no excuse not to have a gun lock on them because they're actually being given out.
Yeah. I mean, my self-defense pistol, I'm not necessarily going to put a gun lock on that, but my rifles, all my other stuff that's, sitting tied up in the closet or whatever, there's no reason I'm not trying to access those in a rush. There's no reason for me to not, just for safety's sake, throw a lock on that. I mean, heck, those I think my rifles, my range rifles, I'm pretty sure they've got a lock going through the action of the rifle, and then they're all of them are in hard cases with padlocks on them. And then they may not all have padlocks on them, but I know I have a bike, like one of those kryptonite bike locks, it's run through the handle of all three. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to get my rifles.
Right.
It's an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I do the same thing. And I think that's just it makes me feel better if I leave the house, and I don't have to worry about someone coming in and getting a hold of anything.
Well, just the other day, like 2 days ago, I got a text message from my neighbor, and she's like, "Hey, are you home?" I'm like, "No, why?" And she sent me a picture, and my front door and my screen were just completely wide open, just swung open. And I don't know, she's a friend, and so she went in and she took some pictures of just everything, and it doesn't look like anything was disturbed. I don't think anyone broke in. I think I maybe I just like had a stroke on my way out the door and like didn't close it, or I kind of just swung it closed and it didn't latch. Who knows? But it was just probably from 9 a.m. to 3 in the afternoon.
Oh my gosh!
Front door to my apartment was just hanging wide open, and so the few things I was worried about, like my laptop. I was worried about some of my hunting gear, and I was worried about my guns, and really, I wasn't worried about my guns because that was the one thing that, they would have to take my entire bed with them and half of my closet to get.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good way to be. You don't want to have to worry about that.
On that note, let's take a quick moment to hear a word from one of my partners. Hey, y'all, as hunters, we are constantly on the move. Whether it's a scouting trip, heading to the range, training for the hunt, or searching for sheds, providing the fuel to sustain this high-intensity lifestyle requires top-quality food options, and you shouldn't have to compromise the quality of your nutrition when you're on the go. Rugged Meats is here to provide superior nutrition anywhere or anytime, no matter what the hunt is throwing at you. Their snack sticks are made from 100% free-range, wild-caught, forest-raised boar, and all products are guaranteed to be free of any added nitrates, MSG, and gluten. Plus, they come in several different flavors and options so you can find the best way to power your pursuit. Check out the Rugged Meats website and get 10% off all purchases from Rugged Meats by visiting our partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. So what's coming up for Jules this season? You have any exciting hunts coming up that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So last year I had a crazy season and I kind of overbooked myself. So by the end of season, I was just fried. So this year I kind of scheduled things a little bit further apart and a little bit easier. I'm staying out west from pretty much all of season. I just came off of that Utah hunt. I do have an antelope tag for Wyoming, so I'm going to go do that, I think, at the beginning of October. I've got a bear tag and a wolf tag for Montana. Just kind of hanging out west. I thought about running over to Idaho. I know Titus is going over there for some stuff. I might just tag along and go, film her do some stuff. I don't know. I love being out west because I can just hop from state to state and, there's still some over-the-counter tags that are in really good areas. Like Idaho is a great example of that. So, yeah, this year is just kind of relaxed. I'll be out west. I've got maybe, 6 or 7 hunts planned, something like that.
So if people want to kind of follow along with everything and see all the upcoming hunts and check out some of the photos from the ladies' trip to Utah, where's the best place to follow you online?
Well, definitely social media. I have such a great community of friends in the hunting world on social media, and I love getting messages from people and comments, and I try to post a lot of photos from behind the scenes on what I'm doing. So my Instagram is Jules McQueen, really simple, all one word. And I'm on there more than I am anywhere else. But I am also on Facebook. I have a fan page, and I think that one's Julie McQueen. If you can't tell, I go kind of back and forth between Jules and Julie. Most people call me Jules. But I think my Facebook fan page is Julie McQueen. And then I'm on Twitter, but I don't do a ton of stuff on there. I mostly use that just for, projects I'm working on and stuff like that. So I would say go find me on Instagram or Facebook.
Definitely, and I'll make sure to link to, I'll grab those social pages and I'll make sure to link to them on our show notes page, which will be livingcountryinthecity.com/37 for episode 37.
Yeah, very cool.
So, as I mentioned earlier, this podcast is kind of directed towards new hunters or folks who may feel overwhelmed by getting into the outdoors. What advice might you have for that person that says, I really want to go hunting or I really want to do this. There's just so much to learn. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. My advice would be go at your own pace. So, and the reason I say that is you're going to meet some people who jump in head first. They buy all the gear, they get a tag, and they just go jump into it. And that's great. And then you're going to meet other people who feel much more comfortable starting off with just going for a hike or, maybe joining a shooting club or going on a group trip, like a wing shooting event or something like that, and starting off small and working their way into it. So, and the reason I kind of like to go in that direction is I have 2 degrees in psychology. So I really focus on different people's cognitive styles and how different people learn different things. And the one thing you don't want to do is overwhelm yourself and put yourself in a bad position or an awkward position that makes you not want to go back out into the woods. So people sometimes jump in too quickly and then they scare themselves in some way, whether it's getting lost or not being prepared or not knowing how to read their maps. And the worst thing you can do is to put yourself in a situation that's going to make you revert from the outdoors. You don't want to go backwards. You want to work into it and grow and enjoy it more as time goes on. So my advice is do what makes you comfortable, ask a lot of questions, and have fun with it. A lot of people come to me and they say, I started off just going for day hikes, and then I would get a tag for an area and do some research. And then, before I knew it, I was out doing these hunts on my own. And it's because I just slowly, gradually became more comfortable in the woods, by myself. And, with modern technology, there's really no reason why you can't reach out and ask for help if you need it. There's in our hunting community, there's almost always going to be people who are willing to give you advice, answer questions, even help you pack out an animal if you need it. You'll find as you spend time in our hunting industry that we're very kind people, and we're very willing to jump in and help other people, especially beginners, people who really need advice or, assistance in some way. There's a lot of people and organizations out there that's what we do. We reach out and we help people. But I think the key is just to do what makes you comfortable and not jump in too quickly. It can be dangerous in some ways, and just ask a lot of questions.
Well, awesome advice. I know I have done a little bit of both at times. I have, and maybe in some aspects, thrown myself in and overwhelmed myself a little bit and started getting discouraged. But then I think I managed to take a step back and really remind myself that I can only do so much in my first year going out for a hunt. But yeah, and I'm thinking about this, and this episode will actually be airing just after I get back from my hunt. So we will.
Oh, nice.
This will be a little bit weird listening to this episode, knowing that I didn't know whether or not whether I came back packing out heavy or not.
Right, and you're a really good example, a living example of exactly what so many of us are trying to to accomplish and to teach people. You're going into this hunt with, you've been prepared. I follow you on social media, and I know that you're prepared. I know that you're ready for it, and you've taken those steps, and you've done everything you can to put yourself in the best position. And those are the hunts that you'll always remember, because you go into it feeling confident and ready. And even if you don't tag out, I can guarantee it's going to be the best experience, because for sure that that's where you need to be at that time. And, there's a lot of people following along on your journey and being inspired by that and motivated to, to do those things themselves. I think that's just a really neat thing that through your, dreams and accomplishing the things that you want to do, you're inspiring other people to do the same. So that's pretty cool.
Well, that is very encouraging to hear, because that was really my goal with all of this, was to just, one, document a little bit for myself, but really reach out and hopefully show other people that, heck, if I can do this, just about anyone can. But thank you so much for hopping on the show with me today, Jules. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experiences.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I always like talking to like-minded people, and you and I have such a similar story on how we're getting into this whole thing. So I am thrilled to be a part of it. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 37 of Living Country in the City. Make sure you check out the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/37 to find links to Jules' socials, along with everything we talked about in today's episode. Also, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any episodes, especially my upcoming Idaho elk hunt recap with Clayton Markser, the Adventure Cowboy. So until next time, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.
Keep me posted and be safe out there and stay in touch when you can, okay?
Absolutely. I'll look forward to those poop pictures.
Oh, yeah. I'm totally texting you poop pictures.